I thought I was on this treadmill and I was going, 9 miles an hour on the treadmill. I was doing a good run. And I thought I was gonna be able to, knock the speed down a little bit because it was gonna be a bit easier and still be able to maintain everything that we did. But actually, I wanted to talk about something business related, career related, and just kind of life related, based on a conversation that we were having this morning. And I won't go into the full details of it. But I found it to be interesting and enlightening, and I think it's important for.
Sure. Just don't embarrass me.
No, I won't embarrass you. So Ben took out his tiny
actually
his sausage. We were talking this morning about, and again, I won't fully go into details of it, but about maintaining, and we've talked a little bit about this, but maintaining enthusiasm for your career. As time goes on. I think Ben and I, in our own ways, were feeling a bit again, it's not unsatisfied, but maybe that is a word. Maybe that is a word that, a bit like, we achieved a level of success last year. Our first movie was made, or our first movie was released. It was made the previous. And we've just been kind of, I think, going, what's the real great thing that we're working towards next? Another movie getting made? Well, yeah. And also somehow now that's happened, it doesn't almost feel as satisfying. It's a strange experience, isn't it?
I think the topic that you're talking about, and it's a good one, is as a screenwriter, what does a career look like?
Yeah.
And the realities of the kind of peaks and valleys and the feasts and famines of screenwriting. And that doesn't just mean financial feasts and famines, peaks and valleys. It also means creative peaks and valleys. It also means enthusiasm, excitement, passion. It's an interesting field. Anything creative, screenwriting, anything else, because you can't just go to work and just do your job and clock out and collect your paycheck.
Right.
It requires a level of personal commitment.
Yeah.
And
emotional engagement.
Yeah. And entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And passion and persistence to keep things going.
Yeah.
There's no just, somebody told me what to do, and so I'm doing it. Now, there is a difference between, and there always will be, being a staff writer in TV versus being a screenwriter.
Yeah.
If you're staffed on a show, you do have someone telling you daily, hey, this is what we need. This is what we need to do. We have a schedule. This is how many episodes we're putting out. This is what's going on. And there's much more structure to it.
Yeah.
As a screenwriter, especially now, the odds of getting a job are very small.
Very small.
And so the career and the profession itself is about us having to create content all the time.
Yeah.
And us having to find the passion to continue to do that.
Yeah.
And, for a long time, that was able to be done through big benchmark goals.
Right.
It was
the next thing that we're working towards.
We need to write our asses off because we need a manager. We need to write our asses off because we want to get an agent. We need to write our asses off because we want to sell our first screenplay. We've sold our first screenplay. We need to write our asses off so that we can actually turn that sale into a career.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a career. Now we need to write our asses off so that we can fucking get something made and be produced screenwriters. Okay, we've produced screenwriters now. What is the next benchmark?
And it's one could argue that it is now you've got to maintain your place in that career.
Yeah.
And that
There
is
is a
and
level.
should be enough. And yet, of course, because it doesn't feel like a benchmark, it just feels like a maintenance.
Right. And also
You know what
because
I
it's a
mean?
lot harder to have a goal that is so vague.
Yeah.
And what's
Totally.
interesting, and one of the things we talked about is you can have a lot of passion for a specific idea or a specific project,
Totally.
and that's great. And we were talking about a movie this morning. I
And it
love
was
it.
great.
It's super fun.
I loved our session this morning.
But
I thought
that
it was great.
doesn't necessarily sustain your perseverance,
Yeah.
even when you hit a wall, even when you realize that the idea you've been working on sucks, even when you realize that, oh, that thing that I loved isn't going to sell.
Yeah.
And there has to be persistence and perseverance. I think, it's screenwriting as a career is a long haul.
Yeah.
And everybody's journey is different, and you'll always hear the story of the guy who came in and sold a big screenplay and has worked since he was 22 and now lives in the giant mansion in Bel Air. The number of screenwriters, just screenwriters, who have that life is very small.
Right.
And most of us working screenwriters are mostly working for free. We're mostly hustling.
Yeah.
We're mostly acting as salesmen.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think that's really part of, I somehow felt or thought that after The Princess was made, we were going to have achieved a level of success whereby we weren't going to have to hustle as much.
Yeah.
I think whether that was an unspoken belief, or that we would, and now we are in, I think, the next tier of screenwriters.
Officially produced screenwriting team.
Screenwriters is a big deal. But we can't stop hustling.
No.
You are on this path that you have to keep walking.
And it may never stop.
Going to be hard.
It may never stop.
Yeah. And so I think that's what I've been feeling, just kind of going, oh, I thought I was on this treadmill and I was going, 9 miles an hour on the treadmill, I was doing a good run. And I thought I was gonna be able to, knock the speed down a little bit because it was gonna be a bit easier and still be able to maintain everything that we did. But actually, and again, I do think it's partly the state of the business at the moment, but the business has always
been hard.
Always been hard.
Anytime I hear a rep or a producer say, oh, it's harder than it's ever been out there, I just kind of roll my eyes.
Because I've never found it to be easy.
Yeah, like what world have you lived in for the last 20 years?
Of one time over the last 9 years, perhaps when we had just sold Winter's Night and we were new and we had heat and we had a series of sales, like we set up 5 projects, including Winter's Night, in the space of those first 2 years.
Yeah, we were on a streak, but that wasn't that I wouldn't say that was easy.
No, I think that was easy either. No,
and it's interesting because I was looking back at that recently, because a lot of those were pitches, and we've talked quite a bit about that on the show.
Yeah,
and I realized that look, we for a very short period of time we sold a very high profile spec, and then we batted 1,000, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is every single thing we took out we sold. It was amazing.
It was
but we also had most of those sales, well, 3 of them anyways, 3 including Winter's Night, went to the same studio.
They did.
And 2 of them were television projects based on IP that they were actively looking for a writer for.
Yeah.
And they weren't like super high profile. They were good projects, but they weren't like, we're looking for the next Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And I think that selling a pitch, which we're running into this world now where everybody's saying how hard it is to sell a pitch, I realized that TV has always been pitch based and it will continue to be pitch based, but now they want more assurances. If you are no longer, if you're new, they want someone in the package that's been around to kind of like make them feel comfortable. That same aspect existed when we were pitching features, which was we would sell pitches to people who knew us well enough to feel comfortable that we could deliver on those pitches.
Totally. Yes.
Now, you know, for whatever reason, we ended up selling a lot of things to the same people consistently, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
And then those people either move on or they decide they no longer want to do development or they do whatever. And then you have to prove yourself again to a new group of people.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is what I started to realize is that the hustle that you're talking about is because the person that you're trying to sell your project to has to believe that you can deliver. And if they've never worked with you before, how do they know?
Yeah.
How do they know? Unless you're a big name that's delivered all over town. Okay, fine. You've had one movie produced. Great. That's wonderful.
Right.
How do I know if I hire you today that you could do the same thing on this script?
Yeah.
And if they're not someone that's worked with you before, it's a gamble for them. And that gamble in today's day and age is now an even bigger gamble because, and we've talked about this before as well, and I just actually read an article literally this morning in Hollywood Reporter talking about Disney Plus and talking about streamers. And there was another article in Deadline about the WGA also talking about streamers and how this is the consistent message across the board that studios in general and their shareholders, which is the most important person that a studio cares about now, is the shareholder. There was a time in which the success of a big movie was important. There was a time then in which the growth of your streamer was important. The more subscribers you had, shareholders were happy because eventually you would achieve profitability. What has happened is shareholders have seen the studios rack up enormous amounts of debt, trying to create all this content so that they could get subscribers.
Right.
But shareholders decided somehow that growth was no longer their top priority. Now their top priority is profitability.
Right.
And so they don't care how many subscribers you have. They care how much money you're making.
Yeah.
Which was always where it was going to go.
You
can't, all the studios being bought up by conglomerates that are beholden to shareholders, eventually it was going to get down to the bottom line. People could only be excited about the textile growth aspect for so long before they went to, well, I don't like this red ink on your balance sheet.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So what they, you know, these articles very specifically were talking about the consolidation of content creation, the laying off of massive amounts of employees. Disney just announcing 7,000 people getting laid off. The cutting of shows on streamers to save on residual payments, which is a huge thing at the moment, across multiple platforms. And the increasing of ad-based streaming services to create more revenue. I sidetracked into this completely other topic, but basically the bottom line is that the business has changed to a certain degree, but you have to find a way to keep that passion going even in an ever-changing environment where pitches,
there
aren't people that are necessarily willing to take chances on paying you to write an idea.
And that's it. And again, I think back to early episodes when we were talking about the fact that you as a screenwriter, while it's a deeply creative business and it's very, very important to be creatively, it's essential to be creatively engaged and love what you're doing. There is also this business side of show business. And you are constantly straddling that thing between, what do I really want to write and what's going to get made out there in the world? And that's why we're constantly trying to find them, come up with the ideas of the movies that will get made, that we also really love.
Sure.
And absolutely, we've had times where there was a project a couple of years ago. I was like, it's this thing, it's this meets this, and you were like, yeah, it's good, but where does that get made? Who makes that for the price that would be required to that? Because what you're pitching is $150 million movie. And who makes that? And I go, but I like the movie. And you're like, oh, yeah, I like it too. And also, there are practicalities associated with all that stuff. But I want to write it. Fine, write it. We're going to sell it. Those things.
Well, and the bring it back also to what you were saying in terms of, okay, you get to a certain point where you're now produced writers, and you get to a certain point where, we've got great agents and great managers and great, people have out in the business have worked with us, not at every studio, but at a few. And yet that thing of, well, okay, so now we need to stay relevant as produced screenwriters. Yeah. Well, part of that is needing to keep selling things. And now that we've had one thing made, needing to get another thing made. And that's where the business side starts to become really challenging, because just putting another script out into the world that people like reading isn't enough anymore.
I know.
We can't achieve that next benchmark just by getting a new agent.
Absolutely.
Like, that's not going to be the next thing. The next thing needs to be another movie made. And that movie then needs to be makeable.
Yes. I suppose where having now been produced helps us in the way that the market is at the moment is we become somewhat more of a known commodity, because when it comes to packaging, our reps are able to say, here's the thing they wrote, it got made,
yes.
Which I think helps.
And people, ultimately, as a writer, you need people to vouch for you. Because you won't have worked for every executive you go in to meet, and you won't have worked for every person that, it's changing all the time.
Yeah.
So
speaking of which, you expertly segued. I'm not sure if you saw the question by Tommy, but that is a question that somewhat relates to what Tommy Lee just asked.
Which
you ever had a situation where execs/producers who haven't worked with you called an exec/producer who has worked with you as in a reference check to how you take notes, etc.?
I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know.
No one's ever told us.
I haven't heard, so-and-so called me today, I sung your praises.
No. But I would say that people do talk.
People do talk.
And people do ask.
Yeah.
And I would say that through representation will find out the experience that a producer or an executive had working with you.
Yeah.
And then they will hopefully then use that hopefully positive feedback to sell you to another said producer. Be like, hey, the guys worked with Toby at Original. He loved working with them. You should call him. They'd be great to work with you guys on something. There is a constant feedback of just talking. I mean, it's, as we've said many, many, many times, it's a relationship-based business.
Right.
If you become the kind of person who is difficult to work with, you better believe that people, when they talk to a producer that you worked with and say, hey, how was it working with those guys? I'm thinking of maybe doing something with them. And they go,
yeah,
that was tough. Well, you just lost that job.
Absolutely. If it's coming down to moments like that, going, I'm not sure if these guys are the guys.
And everybody's having lunch with everyone and Zooming with everyone. especially producers with studio execs. And of course they ask.
Yeah.
Of course they ask. I mean, whether it's a director thinking of working with a producer thinking of working with another writer, a studio exec thinking of hiring a writer who has previously worked with a colleague of theirs. I mean, there's so many different ways around that you need to have people who sing your praises when asked. I don't think people probably, I doubt, unless it's a really big thing where they're like really nervous about you, I can't imagine them calling up like a reference check.
I like them. I like this person. I like this writer. I can see they've worked with them over there. Right. Let me just see. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I mean, look, I'll tell you this much. We have, with attachments on our projects,
100%. So we had a situation where, I won't mention any names or projects, where we were unsure of an attachment, and we found a fellow writer who had worked with said attachment and got the lowdown.
We had another situation with an attachment where we had our reps do some back channeling to find out how people thought about this person.
Absolutely right.
We've had examples where, and writers talk, and we've had plenty of writers tell us horror stories about producers they've worked with, and we remember those things.
Absolutely, yeah. So, we've had people reach out to us saying, "Hey, I've got a meeting over at so-and-so. What are they like to work with?"
So I can't imagine that the same thing doesn't happen in all the other aspects of this business.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's the same thing as like getting a reference to it. I mean, honestly, like I just saw a new doctor, and it was a friend of mine. Called up my, hey, who do you use for this person? Oh, I like this person. You go to, I mean, that's the way the world works, right?
Right.
So anyway.
But again, just kind of circling back to that kind of.
Circle back.
Opening topic. I think
maintaining passion
is going to be something that you are going to have to find your own way of doing. I think at the moment, what we decided on today was the thing we're really excited about, the thing that we love more than anything else in the world with The Princess. It wasn't the release, wasn't the sale. It was going to set. And actually, the phrase I like in various self-development books, particularly when it comes to wealth, is given a strong enough why, a man is able to endure almost anyhow.
Yeah.
I forget it's from a very famous book. I forget the name of the writer. It's about Jewish concentration camp, I think. But that's it. It's like, what is your why? What is our why? And the why this morning has become we need
getting back to set.
Yeah.
There's two things I want to say on this topic before we move on. The first is in terms of keeping the passion alive, and this is for people who are at earlier stages in your career where, man, it's fucking hard. And I just want to say, like, for anyone who doesn't know my personal biography, because I don't think we ever did like an episode where we talked about like our stories.
Yeah.
But, I sold my first screenplay in 2004. And it wasn't until 2014 that I sold my next screenplay.
Right.
There were lots of things that happened in between them, life, work related.
Yeah.
But, like, you have to, when you're a young and hopefully hungry writer, just keep that dream alive. And those benchmarks are really important. Knowing what your next goal is really important.
Yeah.
We've entered into a different era now where that benchmark is less clear. And I think that's what was hard for us to work through, is just going, well, you have to be ambitious as a screenwriter. This is not a career for someone who just wants to like hang out.
Yeah.
This is a career for someone who wants to like make shit happen.
Totally.
And so without a clear goal of going, I'm going to make this shit happen, you like, there's less fire in your belly. And, for, it's 2023. So for 19 years, for me anyways, there was this fire in my belly going, I'm going to have a studio movie, like a real, like, because my first movie was a little $2 million straight to DVD movie. I want a real movie made. And so that keeps you going. That ambition
that
keeps
dream,
you going.
Yeah, for
when
sure.
you're now at this stage in our career, it's about identifying what is that next thing. What is that next thing that keeps you going? And the second thing that I want to say on that directly ties to that. And so, when you were saying that it's about being on set, for me, like, look, we love writing, otherwise we wouldn't do this. We love coming up with ideas. We love fleshing out these ideas. If anyone's watched the last 62 episodes, you know that we get passionate about these ideas. But we got to go to Bulgaria where the princess was shot, and to go there and see all the people who have taken what started as your idea and either made it their own, have gotten jobs or paying like for their livelihoods off of your idea, to see what they've created and how it's just come to life. That was so exhilarating in a way that just writing the idea and having it in your imagination only goes so far.
Absolutely right.
And that having the moment where there's hundreds of people, I mean, literally hundreds of people,
a village of people
to make that idea real.
That
was fucking cool.
It was absolutely really fucking cool.
And I think really is
that's what we're working towards again.
That's what we're working towards again. And I think that it's a challenge because, like you said, it's not really a new benchmark.
No, it's not.
Been there. So I do think there will come a point where if
I were going to add another benchmark, I would really love a television show that we created to get me. That would be the next thing that I'd also really like to have happen. And of course, we are about to take a TV show out. We're about to pitch it in.
We are. But you know what's interesting about that?
What is, Ben?
So this is just an interesting segue into I'd love to have a television show made, which is absolutely something I'd love to have too. But we made a conscious choice about a year and a half ago to say that rather than focus completely 50-50 on TV and features, which is what the majority of our career has been. We've really probably sold almost 50% pilots to feature films. We decided that the payoff and the rewards from selling a feature film far outweigh for us the rewards that we've seen from television, and that the frustrations that come into television creation far outweigh the frustrations that come into expecting a movie. So we decided we were going to go down to one TV.
We used to have two TV development teams.
We had three positions at one point.
So now we're down to one. I think we're going to stay in that place. And I would still really like that. I think,
but it's hard. I guess the reason I bring it up is it's hard to have a benchmark that you're not working 100% towards.
I hear what you're saying.
You can't have a drive and then not do anything about it. Like if our drive, like when we were in the early days, and we were talking about this morning, every hour we were only working on one script at a time. It's all the time we had. We both worked multiple support jobs, and we had 2-3 hours maybe that we could squeeze in here and squeeze in there. Every single hour was dedicated to writing that script.
It was
because we believed in that script, and so all of our energy, all of our creative energy, all of our business ambition, perseverance, everything was focused, laser focused. And as you get more time and as you have a career, you realize you have to juggle projects or you never sustain that career.
It
becomes slightly less focused.
It does,
but you know, if our goal was to get a TV show made, in that being the next benchmark of my career, then all we should be doing is writing pilots.
Right, of course. And it's not. And it's not.
And it's not.
All right, look, let's jump into our project. That was a very good little chat for us this morning.